Hey, everybody, welcome to True Crime Paranormal. I'm Kristi Brower here with my co host, Katie Weaver. Hey, Katie.
Hello.
We're excited to be here with you to bring you another awesome episode of True Crime Paranormal. But as is our norm, we like to start with a little check in. So, Katie, how are you?
Well, I'm about half drugged, so
Oh, my goodness.
I'm here. Yeah,
This
I
should be a
had
good show then. Keep an eye on Katie. You never know.
I
We
had a
have a family
little
history of doing really funny stuff if we've had like
oh
sedating
boy.
medication. So,
Yeah, I had a little medical emergency yesterday that landed me in the emergency room and
not cool.
in an enormous amount of abdominal pain. Like I've never seriously had pain like that in my life. And they gave me a shot of morphine, which I've also never had in my life and hopefully will never have again. However, it ended the pain in a hot second. And
Mhm.
they did a CAT scan, and what they discovered is that I have a little hernia that's opened right above my navel. And I had I can't remember what they called it, a string or a loop, a loop of small intestine that had made its way through the hernia and was basically being forced, cut off by the
Wow.
hernia.
That
Yeah,
sounds
so
extremely unpleasant.
that sounds great, doesn't it?
Right.
And that's why I was in so much pain. So they gave me another shot of morphine, tipped my bed way down so that my head was like way, below my feet. The doctor said that helps relax your abdominal muscles. And he
Mhm.
just went boom and pushed it back in. And that hurt
Well,
too.
who knew?
The nurse was like, "Oh, whoa, I did not know you could do that." And the doctor's like, "Yeah, we just got to get it put back in place." My husband said the doctor's fingertips went like to his knuckle inside that hole. Can you believe that? Yeah.
Yikes.
So he says to my husband, "Do you see how I did that there? That's what you have to do if this happens again." I'm like, "But I don't have any morphine at home." But
Right.
but this went on for hours. I mean, if he had fixed it when it first started, or I had or someone had, it
Mhm.
wouldn't have, I don't think it would have created the major amount of distress that I was in. But anyway, so yeah, I'm gonna have to get that fixed. So that kind of sucks.
Well,
But
wow.
yeah, I was pretty loopy and silly last night. As soon as it was pushed back in, the pain was completely gone. And
Wow.
they're like, "So you can go home." And I'm like, "I can't stand, but yes, I would like to go home." So I went home. Yeah, and I really am I'm fine. I still feel like I've had morphine. I'm amazed at how long. I finally Googled it and it looks like it takes 3 days for it to completely clear your system.
Wow.
So, I'm not driving. I'm not, well, doing
Good,
much of
good.
anything. Yeah. And I don't feel awful, honestly. I just feel kind of high. So, you know,
Well, this should be an interesting read then because you're like wide open.
right?
And
That's
I've
how I've
brought
felt in the
you a
past. Yeah.
very big, well-known case.
Yeah. I'm really
Unsolved,
excited to hit it.
really
Yeah.
very little known actually about what happened to this person.
Yeah. Well, so that's how I am.
Well, good. Well, I guess I'm better off than you
I'm
because
thinking.
I've only been to the dentist, not to the, emergency room, so that's good, but I hate going to the
Mm.
dentist. I don't know, I'm sure you guys all
Oh, yeah.
know. When I go to the dentist, they find, like, 10 things wrong. So,
Yeah.
I'm going through a whole series of really fun dental stuff. I've decided that when you get to be middle-aged, your teeth just go to shit. It's sorta how it's
Yeah.
going for me,
Mhm.
so anyway, I have lots of stuff to do with that, but other than that, I'm doing great.
Well, good.
Yeah,
Good news.
doing really well and excited to share this story with you. Now, most of you, if you're a hardcore crime junkie, you will know this case, but there are some interesting updates that I'm gonna give at the end after Katie gives us our read. Um, but today I wanna share with you the Alissa Turney case. Now, I know lots of people know about the Alissa Turney case, but I'm gonna give the basics to start. So, Alissa was 17 years old. She was a junior in high school. She lived in Phoenix, Arizona with her stepsister Sarah and her stepfather Michael. So, Alyssa's mother passed away when she was young, and Michael, I believe, adopted her, although there's some questions about that. But it sounds like he did adopt her. And so then she lived with him and her step siblings. So at this time, when she was 17, it was just her and her younger sister, Sarah, living at home. And Sarah and Alyssa, they had very different relationships with their father. Um, Alyssa had a very tense relationship with her father, and he was very controlling with her. And this is reported by the family that there was a lot of controlling behavior, and she just didn't have any freedom to do the things that she wanted to do, and there was a lot of tension between them all the time. On May 17th, 2001, this was the last day of school before the summer break. And this is the last day that anybody ever saw Alyssa. So what happened is that Sarah was supposed to be picked up from school by Michael. He never came. So she walked home. She went to a friend's house actually to wait for him. And about somewhere between 4 and 5 o'clock, he shows up and tells Sarah that Alyssa is missing. So Sarah tries to call Alyssa, and there's no answer. They go back to the house. Sarah goes to Alyssa's room and finds her cell phone and like the contents of her backpack. Her backpack itself was missing, but like all of her stuff that she would normally have with her was there on the bed. There was also a note left on her dresser, and the note said, "Dad and Sarah, when you dropped me off at school today, I decided I really am going to California. Sarah, you said you really wanted me gone. Now you have it. Dad, I took $300 from you. That's why I saved my money." So at first, this wasn't a big surprise. There'd been a lot of tension in the house. There were lots of there was a lot of fighting and a lot of issues going on, particularly between Michael and Alyssa, but Sarah and Alyssa weren't getting along great either. And Alyssa did have an aunt in California, and she had said before that she might want to go and live with the aunt. So initially, they thought maybe that is really what had happened. So Michael did call the police. Now, Michael is a former police officer. I think this is an important element of this case. So Michael calls the police and he reports her as Alyssa as a runaway. So they do open a missing persons file on her. Now remember, she's 17. She's a minor. But he said she was a runaway and that he knew for a fact that she had gone to California. So although they opened a missing persons file, there was no follow-up, there was no investigation. Nothing was ever done about this, which that is mind-boggling to me.
Yeah.
That a 17-year-old child goes missing and the word of an adult is taken, and this is the world we live in.
Right, with no follow-up.
Yeah, that there was no follow-up. So supposedly a week after Alyssa disappeared, Michael tells the police that Alyssa called him early in the morning, and that she told him that he was the reason that she'd left, and she told him she was in California, and she told him she was never coming back. Now, Michael provides his phone records, and he did in fact receive a phone call that morning from a California number. This is where it gets really crazy, though, because what we find out is that Michael is an incredibly paranoid human. And he has cameras all over their house. So there's supposedly surveillance 24/7 in their house.
In the house.
In the house. Yeah, not around it. In it, which is creepy as hell.
Mm-hmm.
So then also he has a machine set up to record all phone conversations that come into the house. And this is 2001, of course. They did have cell phones, but they also, this was before everyone threw their landline away.
Yeah.
Now, let me tell you a convenient thing that comes up at some point, and that is that on the day that Alyssa disappeared, all of the recording equipment was broken. No cameras. Mm. And on the day that she called, wouldn't you know it, but the call recorder was broken. So
Sure.
he has literally years of surveillance on his
Mhm.
house and years of phone calls, but he doesn't have the day she went missing, and he doesn't have the
The day she called.
the day she called. Yeah. Now, in the years after her disappearance, there are lots of stories that he tells. So I'm
Mhm.
going to tell you some of them. One is that he picked her up from school at lunchtime on the day that she went missing and took her out to lunch. And after lunch, they went back to the house and had a big fight. And he left to go run errands and pick up Sarah, which remember, he didn't actually do.
Right.
And that when he came back to the house about 5 o'clock, she was gone and had left the note.
Mhm.
There was never any activity on her social security number, never got a job, never did anything like that. She had $1,800 saved in the bank. That money was never spent.
Mhm.
There was never any evidence of her existing after that day. At one point, Michael starts telling people in their family and that they know that he thinks something terrible has happened to her, and that he thought that someone was maybe following her and that he had to go search for her himself. He supposedly made trips to California to search and pass out missing flyers. But, all you have here is his word,
Mhm.
which, we're learning is worth nothing.
Nothing. Yeah.
Let's see. In 2006, a man named Thomas Heimer, who was in a prison in Florida, he sent the police a letter and confessed to her murder. He apparently did that a bunch of times to a bunch of different murders around the US,
Mhm.
and they were a hoax. It was not true. He was never charged or anything. Um, let's see. So, you know, the police gave it 7 years
Mhm.
after she'd gone missing before they thought, well, maybe we ought to look into this because she hadn't contacted any of her friends or anyone in her family. The aunt she was supposedly going to live with hadn't seen her. The money in her bank account was still there. Her social security number was never used. And so at this point, the police decide that maybe, in fact, she is missing and not a runaway. This is 7 years
Yeah.
later. Okay. This is sickening. Whoever
Yeah.
these police officers are, and this is still quite a long time ago, I should
Yeah.
have been fired. I mean, it's
Yeah.
absolutely ridiculous that they let it go like this.
Well, but again, like even like in discussing the Chad Daybell case and his privilege,
Yeah.
thinking about the privilege of Michael here,
Yep.
former police officer,
White guy.
white
Yep.
guy, gonna trust his
Man. Yeah.
word. Yep.
Yep.
Yep. Oh boy. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Go on.
So that's when they start doing some investigating and they get the story that he had picked her up. Michael had picked her up from school at lunchtime. That was confirmed by her boyfriend, John, who did say that Alissa said she was leaving early, but
Mhm.
she also said she would see him later that evening at a party. So it
Mhm.
was the end of the school year. There was a party. She told her friends she was going to be there at the party.
Yeah.
So yeah, he says he picks her up for lunch. They get home and have a fight, which ends up with her storming off to her room and him leaving to run errands. Those errands, we don't know what, because he didn't show up to pick up his daughter from school like he was supposed to. So what was he
Mhm.
doing? So the police kind of start figuring Michael out. He's
Yeah.
very litigious. He likes to sue people and he's super paranoid. So he has, of course, documented every incoming and outgoing call to his house, has cameras inside his house. There was one hidden in the vent of the living room, so people didn't even know they were being recorded in that room.
Good
He
Lord.
what?
I said, good Lord.
I know, isn't that creepy? Can you
Mhm.
imagine? I cannot imagine.
Those poor girls.
And
I
still at
mean,
this
that's
point, this is 7 years later. I mean, what
yeah.
are they gonna do now? But, of course, when they ask for the audio tapes of the day that Alissa went missing, of course, unfortunately, the audio recorder wasn't working. What a coinky dink, right?
Yeah.
So now they decide they have probable cause to search the house. And this is where it gets bonkers, okay? They search the house, they find 26 pipe bombs and
Holy
a
shit.
90 what?
I said, holy shit.
Right? Holy shit. And a
Yeah.
90-page manifesto. Okay, he's got a manifesto.
Oh boy.
Please. Written by
You
Michael.
know, when the manifesto comes out, the
Where
crazy
you're
pants
in
have come on.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Some shit has already gone down. So
Mhm.
in the manifesto, he claims that Alissa had run away, but he believed that she was followed by two men. So he used to work for an electrical union. Kind of sounds like maybe he jumped around jobs. So he was apparently a whistleblower when he worked for that union, and that some of the men he worked with didn't like him because of that, and he says that they went after Alissa, and that he believes that they took revenge on him by murdering her. I mean, this just gets bigger and crazier, right?
Mhm.
And then he says that he avenged her death by killing both of these men.
Ugh,
They do find out both these men are dead of natural causes. He didn't kill them, but
no.
it's in the wackadoodle paperwork.
Mhm.
Um, so then they discover lots and lots of paperwork and hundreds of hours of audio and videotape, but they don't, of course, ever find anything from the day that she went missing.
No.
But they did find some other really creepy stuff. Okay. So they find some letters that Alissa had written where she claims that she had been molested by Michael.
Mhm.
And they do discover that some of her friends and a teacher had also been told this. Why the teacher didn't
Wow.
report that? Man, adults have failed this kid at every
Mhm.
turn in her life.
Okay, can I stop you right there and just say one thing? Before you
Please.
say anything else, I would just like to say this because
Yes.
it's burning a hole in me.
Okay.
Alissa was pregnant.
Oh, okay.
The first hit I had is that the fight that they had was about her telling him that she was pregnant. Now
Okay.
and I just wanna say I just feel like I wanted to say that right now. Carry on, but
Okay.
that's the first thing that I feel like I need to spill on,
Okay.
is that
Please
that was what
break
she
in at
told
any
him,
moment.
is that she, was pregnant. I also feel that there was a physical struggle and that she hit her head on the corner of something, a coffee table, something sharp, you know?
Mhm.
I don't think that he meant to kill her, but I absolutely believe he did kill her.
Okay.
But anyway, keep going.
Okay. Good to know. Good to know. Now, among these letters where she claims that he was molested by Michael, there are also contracts that Alissa had signed. For a moment about who may have written these contracts that she had signed that said that she had never been sexually assaulted.
Oh, boy.
So Creepy McCreeperson was making her sign things
Mhm.
to prove that he had never molested her. Super
Wow.
gross, super creepy. Okay, so he ends up pleading guilty and serves 10 years in prison for the pipe bombs because, of course,
Okay, sure.
super illegal
Yeah.
explosives. He was diagnosed in prison with paranoid personality disorder.
What? No.
No shit, Sherlock. Holy cow.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So this is where things just kind of fall apart for a long time. I have some other
Mhm.
things to share, but I wanted to give you an opportunity to give us your read on what happened to her, if you have any ideas about where her body is, because she has not ever been found.
Mhm.
It's interesting how when you wait 7 years to determine
Right.
that a child is missing, it's hard to find them.
Mhm. For sure.
Imagine that, Phoenix police. So,
More of Arizona police really botching
I
shit
know,
up, you
interesting
know?
because they're
Gilbert and
heavily involved in the
Chandler,
Vallow case.
right, Gilbert and Chandler are already on our list, so here we
Yeah, and
go.
this is now Phoenix. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Okay. Well, so what I'm seeing is that they did go to lunch. I feel like she left school not feeling well, and that they did go to lunch, and that she did tell him that she was pregnant, that she had learned that she was pregnant. I am unclear. I don't want to conjecture that I think this was the boyfriend's child or his. I thought it was the boyfriend's until all the molesting stuff came up, and then I went, maybe it wasn't. Maybe that's what a part of this was. And
And
I
it's
don't
likely
have a
she didn't.
super and I'm thinking she didn't because I don't know. I'm not getting a strong hit on who, but I do believe that but she did tell him that she was pregnant.
Mhm.
And again, I feel like that there was a struggle and that she kind of, was pushed, fell, and hit
Mhm.
her head. And, you know, if people fall on a sharp corner or are pushed hard and fall in in the wrong way and hit their head the wrong way, that can kill you. And I feel like that's
Yeah.
what happened.
One blow.
I don't feel like he intended to kill her, but I do feel like he did. And so I do feel like, in the time that he was, supposedly running errands and not picking his other daughter up, that he was disposing of her body. I see some kind of concrete. I see some kind of, let me try and get this totally straight. The words I'm hearing are batch plant. Batch plant.
Batch plant. Okay.
Batch plant. Batch plant is a place where you get concrete.
Mhm.
I So did he put her somewhere on his property and then pour concrete? This has got some weird parallels to the case we've just been on, and so I'm trying to make sure I'm not
Mhm.
but the words I keep hearing are batch plant.
Okay.
That this had to do with ordering concrete from a batch plant, or putting her somewhere where a batch plant was pouring concrete.
Okay.
But I do feel like she's in concrete. I guess that's where
Okay.
I gotta boil it down to. I do feel like she's in concrete, whether that's on his it's not on his property. It's not. That just does not resonate. It's not on his property. But he did so he wasn't all right. He cleaned up the mess. I feel like he put her somewhere and held on to her until he could put her in concrete, which is where he did eventually dispose of her. I actually feel like she was in their garage for a short time before that happened. Or in their shed, or some part of their home,
Mhm.
where I'm guessing he didn't think Sarah would find her. I'm
Mhm.
kind of weirded out by the whole Sarah thing too, because they had a really, the relationship there was weird. But then I think, I'm interested to see where Sarah's at now with all of this,
Yeah, there's a big
because
update there,
yeah,
but I wanted to
because
get your
things
read on the story
changed, I
first.
think. Sarah was just very, very brainwashed by
Mhm.
her dad. But I feel like once he was out of the picture and she finally, maybe got some therapy and got away from him, she finally realized, holy shit, this is really, this is what
Yeah.
happened. She didn't write that note. She didn't run away. None of those things are true. But interesting that in the note that obviously he wrote, he targeted Sarah, to piss her
Mhm.
off so that she'd be like, okay, well, fine then, good riddance. And also to, she stole $300 from her dad, to also make her look like the villain,
Mhm.
really trying hard to make her look poorly. But that is what I do believe, that he did kill her that day. I do think it was an accident, but he did do it. I do believe it was because of a fight they were having over the fact that she told him that she was pregnant. I do see him wrapping her up in some kind of fabric, sheets, plastic, like layers of things. I do feel like her body actually was in their garage, or some outbuilding, some outside their house,
Mhm.
for a couple of days until he figured out where to put her. I feel like during that time, Sarah kind of missed out on a few things that he was up to. Maybe
Mhm.
because she was at a friend's house, maybe because he, just worked well that way and manipulated her well. But I
Mhm.
just don't think she knows. But I also do believe that that body is somewhere in concrete right in that area. I don't think it'll ever be found.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. Awesome read. I think it's exactly what I was hitting on as well. Um just so sad that it took so long for the police to take it seriously, and they still really didn't for a very
No,
long
they
time.
really let her down. They also really let Sarah down, because she was in that house with oh, you're not supposed to say that on YouTube, with a freaking madman, you know?
Yeah. Yeah,
I'll
absolutely.
edit that out.
Okay. Right, exactly. So what happens is, as Sarah gets older, she figures her dad out. And she starts to really question the truth of this situation, and realizes that she thinks that her dad murdered her sister.
Mhm,
And so she has been on quite a crusade.
mhm,
I wanted to share with you, she has 5 reasons why she believes that Michael killed Alissa.
mhm,
she went to visit him. She saw him once after he was released from his 10-year prison sentence for the pipe bombs, and had it was the first time that she had spoken to him about any of this for a long time, that it wasn't, like, being recorded,
Uh-huh. Mm,
um, at the prison, and
sure.
so she wanted to get his take on it, and here are a few things that she comes up with. First, there was definitely the abuse. There was definitely evidence that
Yeah.
Alissa was being abused for the majority of her life by him.
Mhm. Yeah.
She says, this is just a quote from her. I think this is important to hear. The relationship our father had with Alissa is commonly described by those who knew her as one closer to an abusive boyfriend rather than a fatherly figure. He was
Mm.
extremely possessive, often sitting in the parking lot of Alissa's part time job to ensure she was where she was supposed to be. He constantly warned her friends and their parents of how she was gullible and unable to take care of herself. He also
Wow.
required Alissa to sign behavioral contracts that included a clause stating that he never sexually or physically abused her.
Wow.
One of the things that he did was he called child protection and told them that if his stepdaughter ever called and falsely accused him of sexually abusing her, um, that they had he had all this surveillance in the house to prove that that wouldn't be the case. He also told them that she was going to call them and falsely accuse him of that, so he would buy her a car.
Oh, wow.
Weird stuff. I mean, I'm a social worker. I'm also an adoptive parent. I've worked in the foster system and I've worked with child protection. And I got to tell you that innocent people, they don't do stuff like this.
No.
No.
No, but what did child protection do with that?
Right.
Nothing?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing. Honestly, there really isn't anything they can do. There's no allegation. There's got to be an allegation. And there wasn't.
But
This
there
was like
was because the
preemptively.
teacher had been told.
Right, but that teacher,
Ooh,
I don't think ever reported. There's no proof that that teacher ever reported.
that is so disgusting and sad because
Yeah,
had the teacher reported and CPS had how it had these weird calls from him, maybe some connections would have been made.
yeah,
Ugh,
yeah.
wow. This girl was let down by, well, everyone.
She was. She was definitely let down. Her second reason that he is, guilty is means and opportunity. We know he had motive. He also had the means and the
Mhm,
opportunity. He took her out of school early that day and didn't tell
mhm,
anyone.
mhm,
Um, one of the reasons that this was very strategic is because Sarah was on a field trip with her school at a water park that day, so he knew that there was no way that she could come home early from school.
mhm,
He also had a pretty large time span of time. He picked her up about 11 and then,
mhm,
didn't see Sarah till 5 or even later. She's not
mhm,
100% sure now of how late it was.
mhm.
Um, one witness reports our father purchasing a large amount of lye
Ah,
around the time of Alyssa's disappearance, and he did acknowledge that he did make that purchase.
mhm.
Yeah.
Was he using lye in his bombs? I don't know how that works,
I don't know, might have been. That's
but
a good question.
yeah, lye is something that people pour over bodies to try to break them down faster.
Yes, definitely. Also then she cites the surveillance failure, that the equipment, s supposedly failed on her last day that anyone ever
Mhm,
saw her, and it also failed again the day that she supposedly called.
mhm.
Um,
Oh, the call. The call was just an arranged call.
right, the call was an arranged call, and I've read something about that he had been traveling to California supposedly looking for her,
Mhm.
and that it's believed that he paid someone to make that phone call,
Yeah, that was just
in order to
arranged.
have proof of it in his call log, but not
Mhm.
have a recording of it, unlike everything else.
Do we know why he wasn't a police officer any longer?
I'm not sure. I couldn't find a lot of history on him, but he seems to have bounced around in jobs quite a lot.
Yeah,
The other reason that, her 4th reason is all the lies and deceit
sure.
that, um, pretty much her whole life. All he ever did was lie to her.
Mhm.
He never told anybody in the family that he had taken Alissa out of school that day until it was
Mhm.
years later,
Yeah.
and he told a lot of different stories, none of which,
Yeah.
made any sense. I guess he at one point, he told everybody that she ran away with a biker, which is
Ah,
17
Christ.
kid, you know?
Yeah.
So in one, he said she never went to school that day at all.
Mhm.
He told some
No,
neighbors.
she did. Her friends saw her at school that day. She did
Right,
go
yeah,
to school that day.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. He also refused to give his DNA to the police.
Oh, you can just do that?
Well, they didn't at that time, they didn't have a warrant. It sounds like it was just a, um, courtesy. Now, the last one, this is really important because this is when she met with him. So Sarah met with him in October of 2017 after he was released from prison. And this was the first time they'd spoken in 10 years that wasn't a recorded conversation. And
Mhm.
this is what Sarah says. She says, after realizing I wasn't there to reconnect, he became angry. In addition to a slew of shocking and disgusting statements about Alissa, he also taunted me with the closest thing to a confession we will probably ever have. Be at the deathbed, be at the deathbed, Sarah, and I will give you all the honest answers you want to hear. He then agreed to tell me everything if the state agreed to give him lethal injection within 10 days of his confession. But of course,
Wow.
none of that is provable.
Yeah.
So she has started a podcast, and she's had this huge petition and really been pressuring the prosecutor in Phoenix to do something about this in the police department in Phoenix. She
Mhm.
has her own podcast called Voices for Justice, where you can get more information
Good.
about the Alissa Turney case. But she announced that on June 9th, 2020, that the Phoenix Police Department are submitting Alyssa's case to the prosecutor's office for charges against Michael Turney. She has
Okay.
finally prevailed 19 years later,
Wow.
but she has prevailed. So I'm very curious to see what else happens because this was just very recently,
Yeah.
and I couldn't really find anything else about exactly what they're going to do. But she has fought really hard for her sister, and, she has said that at the time that all of this happened, she was just a kid and she didn't really understand it, but now she understands the kind of craziness that they were living with and the
Yeah.
abuse that they were living with, and that
Yeah.
no one has spoken up for Alissa except for her,
Yeah.
and that she feels like that Alissa would have done the same for her, and that
Oh,
she's
yeah.
never going to let this go until she gets justice for Alissa.
Mhm. Well, good on Sarah. Yeah, Sarah was
Yes.
just a kid
Yeah.
with a crazy parent
Yeah.
that yeah, they
Well,
were living in hell.
crazy parent who let Sarah do whatever she wanted. Sarah
Right.
was kinda spoiled,
Mhm.
got her way in every situation,
Mhm.
and Alissa was on lockdown all the time, and so it created a lot of friction
Mhm.
between the girls.
Well, he
So she
purposely
just
kept friction between the girls.
Oh, yeah, it
He
was
didn't
all
want them to get along.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, he wanted them to not get along, and he wanted them to not be close because then Sarah wouldn't figure out what was going on. But as an
Mhm.
adult, she's been able to really see and understand what really was
Mhm.
going on, and she knows that if she doesn't get justice for her sister, no one will.
No. No. No.
So, it's very good news that,
Yeah.
they have agreed to charge him, and we'll see what happens. We'll keep an eye on this case and keep you updated.
Mhm.
But I do, find it amazing that after 19 years
Yeah.
of going missing, they're actually looking at charging the person who killed her on the day she went missing. I
Yep.
mean, she's been dead this whole time.
The whole time. Yep. She never left that house
No.
after lunch. Though I do really feel like he killed her in the house, but
Mm.
he had 7 years to make sure
Right.
there was no evidence. I mean,
Police
that's the
certainly
really
handed him plenty of time to make sure that they could never convict him.
that's the really hard part here is that the
Yeah,
evidence is pretty shallow,
it is. It is. I
But
mean, if they can really, unless his ego gets the best of him and he decides to
yeah,
confess,
yeah,
if he decides that it's worth the fame or whatever, and
mhm,
and it might be that kind of personality, you
yeah,
don't know.
yeah, for sure. Well, also, though, I hope that they're taking a hard look at the people he was in prison with
Yes.
and talking to all of them to
Yeah.
find out what he said in there because I do feel like he was shooting off his mouth in prison.
Mhm.
I do wonder if there's some kind of a, at least a partial confession there, something that they can use,
Mhm.
to take a harder look at him.
Yeah.
But so proud of Sarah for being tough, and standing up and fighting for her sister because wow. He had an air of you owe it to me with Alissa.
Mhm.
He kind of saw her as her replacement for her mother. And yeah, it was very sick and unhealthy.
Yeah.
And I also think that the reason he and Alissa had the friction they did is because she saw through his bullshit,
Yeah.
and wasn't willing to, buy into it. Sarah was just younger, and
Mhm.
he just had a different relationship and different energy with her than he did with Alissa as well. But
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah. Very sad. But I'm
Yeah.
glad that at least even just him being charged, I think is something, like
Mhm.
somebody's taking notice of this situation, even if he doesn't
Mhm.
get convicted, which I truly hope that he does.
Yeah.
But at least being charged is something. Somebody
Something.
cares.
Yeah. Well, I think they've finally figured out that Sarah's not gonna shut up,
Yeah, she's clearly not going away, and she's made that very clear.
Mhm.
She's not going away until they make this happen.
Yep. Well, she's using the internet and social media to her benefit to
She
really
is.
keep the
She's all
spotlight
over
here.
Facebook and
Mhm.
TikTok, and she's doing a great job. It's a great example of what a family member should do if
Mhm.
something like this happens in your family.
Well, but I also feel like she's becoming an ambassador for other families of missing persons that she's been able
Yes.
to serve as, support and also as, an advice person and using her platform obviously to get attention on other cases too that
Yes.
need this attention. And
Yeah,
so it's also powerful what she's doing. So yeah,
it
she
is.
definitely
It's great work.
deserves all of our support. Yeah.
She does. We certainly wanna honor that and just support this process, be
Mhm.
aware of it. The more people paying attention, the more it seems that action happens. We've seen that with the Ballo Daybell case. We're
Yeah.
seeing that here with Alissa Turney.
Mhm.
The more people paying attention and speaking up and noticing, the more pressure there is for law enforcement to do something.
Yeah.
I think that's a really important part of true crime podcasting
Yeah.
is continuing because lots of people have talked about Alissa Turney. This story has been told over and over again,
Yeah.
but I think we have to keep telling it until there is a resolution, just like lots of other cases. We have to keep talking about them so that they don't just disappear.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Because Alyssa deserves justice. Sarah deserves
Yes.
justice.
She does. She absolutely does. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, all the other families of people who've gone missing like this and whose situation has been ignored. I mean, it's a horrifying thing to think that a child could go missing like that and the situation be ignored for so long.
Mhm.
It's
Well,
unreal.
just that the stepdad could just get to say, "Yeah, well, she was a runaway," so and
Right.
that we would just take that as at face value and just let it go.
No. There's I mean, all they had to do was call that aunt in California to determine that that kid was not with her.
Yep.
And they, could have actually been working a case that wasn't cold.
Right, right.
Super cold now, but
Yeah.
anyway,
Well, we'll just keep holding space that, Alyssa gets her justice and that Sarah does too.
yes, most definitely, most definitely. Well, that's what we have for you today here at True Crime Paranormal with the Psychic Sisters. Don't forget to check us out over on Patreon. If you like what we're doing and would like some extra content and want to support our work, you can do that over there. And once you become a patron, you get some extra episodes that no one else gets, which is pretty cool. We also have our Facebook page and Facebook group, True Crime Paranormal with the Psychic Sisters on Facebook. You may be listening to this on a podcast, and if you are, you can find us on YouTube. We do video our podcasts, and it's a lot of fun to have a chance to interact with you there. I love podcasting, but you don't get comments, and it's
I know,
great to
yeah.
get comments and interaction. And so, if you want
I
to come find us
mean,
on YouTube,
usually,
yeah, usually, occasionally there's some trolls out there, but I don't care.
I don't care.
Um, but so we'd love
Someone
for you to come
recently
find
called
us
us
on YouTube.
fat, and we were like, "Duh,
And
that the best you've got?
yeah,
Okay."
sorry, but I graduated the 6th grade. Thank you very much. Yeah. So who cares? But anyway, if you are listening to us on a podcast and you'd like to see us, you can come find us over on YouTube. And we will be back with lots more fun stuff. We will likely be back with an update on the Daybell Vallow case.
Soon. Yep.
Probably many more updates there. And, as always, we love case recommendations. So if you have a case you'd like us to look at, come comment in YouTube and tell us. One thing to keep in mind, we like cold cases because we want to read the case. We don't like solved cases because they're solved. Bring us cases that are unsolved. That's what we're looking for. So,
Yeah.
I love, the solved ones are fun to learn about, but hey, they're solved. Let's put the attention on the ones that aren't.
Yeah.
Let's put our 2 cents out there into the world along with everybody else's on cases like Alissa's that aren't solved, and hopefully that helps to bring resolution.
For sure.
Yeah. Well, this
All
has been
right.
True Crime Paranormal with the Psychic Sisters. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Bye.